Yeah, thank you, Jerry, for the awesome introduction. Again, this is really the start of our webinar series and something we're really excited about. I think it's going to help drive our membership. And with that, we want to make sure we start off on the right foot, the right guy. And I want to introduce Jared Rice. Rice has been in the industry focusing on irrigation for different facilities for better part of a decade, 12 years to be exact. And today he's going to go over why irrigation water management is important to you and your property. Not only a return on investment, but also with the drought, different things taking place, restrictions. It's important to kind of learn how we can really save moving forward. And I'm really just excited to introduce him and let him take over from here. So join me in welcoming Jared, and let's have a good meeting.
Hey, thanks, Tommy. Appreciate the intro and the invite. So hopefully we'll get through this and it'll be fruitful for everybody. At least some nuggets here. So the intent here and kind of today, I think everybody might have seen the flyer, but that Tommy had sent out. But why water management? What's our role in it? Why is it important? Things like that. So we'll kind of cover that at a high level, and then hopefully not take too long. And any questions and answers we can discuss as well. So what is water management? Kind of want to just take a moment and define it. There's a lot of stuff, and we probably all at least have some sort of definition in our own minds of what it is. But I kind of wanted to at least share my definition of it. I'm a pretty simple guy, so the use of tools to monitor water application for landscape, get the best plant health and reduce runoff. So in short, there at the bottom is kind of what I typically tell people. It's it's the right amount of water gets to the roots of the landscape and nowhere else. And why is irrigation maintenance important? And I want to pause and just kind of highlight this word maintenance. And I don't know if Tommy did that on purpose or not. He probably did, but when he sent me the list, it said irrigation maintenance and not management. And I thought that was a pretty awesome call out. And you guys look like you got some really awesome tours going on, and I'm a process guy, so those look like a lot of fun. But the reason I want to draw attention to that is each one of those things, right? Like John Wayne Airport or SoFi. I've had the opportunity. I live in Dallas Fort Worth, so I've been into AT&T Stadium. All those like big buildings and facilities, as you guys know way better than me, they're complex systems, right? And they take maintenance, and they take I was working with folks at Qualcomm when they first started coming out with like predictive maintenance, right? So all those type of things, and irrigation systems are no different. They're underground, they're plastic, they're water, especially in California, the ground's flexing, so everything takes maintenance, it takes upgrades, it takes repair. And the price of not doing it is we're wasting water and driving up costs, causing damage, all those type of things that go along with it. So it's sometimes in our industry, and maybe it's our fault, it gets put on the back burner, but it's such a huge piece of the whole puzzle because it's the lifeblood of the landscape. And so why is maintenance important? Well, I want to talk just about a couple things. So limited resources, somebody mentioned the drought, radical weather changes, all those type of things start to limit the resources, the population pressures. And then what that does is basic economics, right? It starts driving up the water rates. And in landscape, the water rates are, accelerating faster than any other natural resource or utility that there is. Also, another thing, I kind of mentioned that it's probably our fault, and we need to do some things as an industry to correct it. But we've done a 10,000 site survey, an independent survey, with property managers, with facility managers, with landscape contractors, and these are the things we found: is that 85% of the systems lack a rain or freeze detection. 90% don't even receive the inspections, the irrigation inspections that are, most of the country are built into, standard scopes of work. 25% overwater by 600,000 gallons per acre. I mean, that's a huge number. Sites that have unaddressed repairs or a long time between repair or identification of the repair and getting it fixed. And then damage, hardscape building damage, other things as well too are damage from water leaks. So and then 50% of the irrigation water is wasted according to the EPA. And so those are some, if you kind of look at it, those are some big scary numbers, right? So 70% of water is used outdoors, and the EPA is saying that 50% of that is wasted. And then, where does all the waste come from? It comes from a lot of this thing. I want to pause this really quick. So the first number, the 85% lack of rain and freeze detection. We'll get into kind of smart and weather-based irrigation here in a little bit, and it gets a little bit more complex. But I think, and this is from a lot of years in the industry, plus just some kind of studies that I've done, is if you have an active rain freeze sensor and you don't bypass it and you keep it up, keep it maintained and it's operational, you're going to save probably somewhere around 20-25% water savings over the course of a year versus not having one. And what that does is just think about your entire system, and we'll look at some numbers here and we won't dive too far into it, but just think about an entire system, especially for a large campus or things like that. And if you can save a irrigation event because of rain throughout the course of a year, I know I'm talking to Southern California, so that's one day. But there's times, right? So add up the different rain events like over the course of a year, and kind of you take some of the extremities out. The average across the country is 20 to 30 irrigation events per year. And that's a ton of water. So just something as simple as that has a pretty good argument for an ROI, if you will. So that 50% waste, that's kind of the number that I want to kind of spend a little bit of time on. And why is there waste, right? Like that's probably scares all of us, right? If 50% of something is wasted, right? 50% of your whatever your annual income is wasted, right? And actually my dad did a study with me when I was probably 16 on exactly that. And so it kind of resonates with me personally, is that's a scary number. So the story on that is that when I was a kid was I was 16. I'd been working since I was 12. I felt like I was making a lot of money. I was able to buy my first car, all those kind of things. And I look at the bank and I don't have that much money. So I went to my dad and I was like, hey man, I'm working and I didn't feel like I'm getting anywhere. So he had me do an exercise and he said, write down every expense, and I had a credit card at the time too. And I was like, cash, credit card, any output of money, right? Write down every expense for 2 weeks and then let's talk. And so I did that. And it's amazing how much money you spend on candy bars, right? It's something stupid. So it's crazy. So 50%, long story, to get to 50% of waste of anything sounds really, really scary. And so it sounds scary here as well too. And I'm sure all of us have seen pictures like this. I drive by the same place every single morning when I'm at home. And I can tell when I irrigate because the street's just flooded, right? We probably all have those things. Well, all that is just wasted water. And it's crazy. These particular pictures are just from repairs that aren't being made or repairs that need to be made, right? And there's also other things that create waste. I know this is kind of a goofy picture here, but our landscape evolves over time. And so if we have an older landscape, it may need something different than when it was first put in. And so this is just a picture depicting of a plant blocking blocking a spray head. So you're not getting good coverage. In this particular case, I've seen it 1,000 times, is we probably overwater because there's a dry spot in front of that shrub, right? Or you know, around that tree or wherever, like the situation can stay, but it's we overwater other areas to, and we're not really addressing the real problem. So, you know, not only does, myself from a training aspect, and I'll pick on Tommy, but Tommy from a maintenance aspect, and other, you know, landscape contractors, but also us as facility managers, we all have a play in this. Is let's fix the real issue. So that leads us into what is our role. And so landscape management, facility management, and ownership, this is kind of just how I broke it down. Maybe there's more complex buckets than this, but just trying to keep it simple. And so from a landscape management standpoint, are we performing the inspections? Are we reporting that the repairs are needed? Are we recommending technology upgrades? Are we, you know, being a consultant around budgets and those type of things? Facility management, you know, I feel like the role from facility management is, you know, one, expect the inspections, review the results, and then approve the repairs, and you know, timely approval of repairs. We saw back in our 10,000 site audit that time to repair was, I think, 8 weeks. Well, there's a lot of irrigation cycles over 8 weeks, and that's a lot of wasted water if there's a repair needed. And then ownership, and I don't know where, you know, all the lines blur here between facility management and ownership, but you know, setting the budgets, you know, for repairs, for maintenance. This is a complex system, just like, you know, I think I forget his name already. Is it HVAC or and air and movement? I mean, so those are complex systems too. So, you know, this is not trying to draw a parallel. Not saying it's the same thing here. So, those are the roles. And then how do we do those roles? Well, I kind of wanted to take just the kind of my soapbox for a little bit. The big ones is the inspections have to be done. You know, there's really no other way to make sure that a system is running correctly, no matter what it is, in this case, the irrigation system, without without performing inspection. So that's one, and that falls on, you know, both landscape maintenance provider, and then also, you know, expectations from the facility manager as well too. And then also there's now technologies that are out there that can help us start preventing that 50% waste, or at least cutting into it, right? So there's weather-based controllers, you know, cloud-based alert monitoring. Everybody's already familiar with that. You got, you know, probably Ring at your house. You got, you know, all of our buildings are smart, you know, and we got pressure regulating spray heads, master valves, and flow sensing. We're just going to talk for a little bit about the controllers, the alert monitoring, and the PRS here, just because those are kind of the low-hanging fruit. So when we say weather-based controller, what does that do? And here again, we're trying to, in my mind, we're trying to eat into that 50% of waste and save a little bit of water. But at the end of the day, we still want the landscape to look good. We still have a obligation, or you know, we don't want to save 100% water. All of us can do that, right? Just turn it off. But we want to use the right amount of water to the roots and nowhere else. And so what does a weather-based controller do? Well, it makes daily adjustments to the amount of water that's needed. So not every day is exactly the same, and not every time of year is exactly the same. And most of the time in our industry, we're setting an irrigation timer or controller to the worst case scenario seasonally. So 4 times a year or 6 times a year, if we're, you know, awesome, 12 times a year, or making an adjustment to an irrigation runtime. Well, that's fantastic if it's worst case scenario every time during that span of time. It's not. And so as weather changes every single day, well, the true water requirement to keep a plant looking healthy and thriving also changes. And so a weather-based controller utilizes technology in order to help us do that. I love showing this. This is just a real quick glimpse at what could happen. People always ask, how much water savings, and that's typically the conversation is around water savings and ROI and things like that. I kind of we try to we deliver that as well too. But I always frame it to, we want to keep the right amount of water that the plants need to be healthy and strong, because at the end of the day, that's probably what matters to ownership at the ultimate customer, right? And so, but I do want to show this, and this is taken on the exact same site over the exact same time period, one zone, and then these are the exact same plants. They were shrubs, and they're the exact same type of zones. They were all spray heads, and the plants look amazing or look good in both. 440 minutes traditionally set. You kind of see that worst case scenario seasonality. It's every single day, or whatever the frequency was there. It looks like maybe 4 days a week. It was running, and it ran the same amount of time. And then the one on the bottom adjusted with the weather. And so that's a massive gap, right? That's what, over 50-60% savings. And nothing else was done between those two, except one was switched into a automatic adjustment or a smart, you guys will hear as well too, or weather-based schedule changes, and one was just left under the traditional. So a big eye opener, and it was a lot of fun. And this was, I accidentally pulled this for a customer off the same site, and it just happened. So kind of a cool real life test. The other thing that helps us save, conserve water is remote access and alert monitoring. And so I tell people quite a bit is, this is like if you owned a fleet of vehicles, I could probably make it more relevant to facility managers, but if you could have the check engine light on that whole fleet of vehicles remote accessed, right? Right now, if we kind of just walk through that scenario, if we had a check engine light come on, we only see it when we get in that vehicle and like turn the key to auxiliary or turn it on, right? Then we're like, oh, okay, we can do that. But what if we had the ability to see that all the time live on a dashboard, what's going on? So similar to, Formula One, right? Or something like that. Well, that's what we're able to do with our irrigation systems when we have this cloud-based remote monitoring. So 24/7, we're able to see, programming errors, electrical diagnostics. Is a valve failing? Is there a power failure to the controller? Was there a weather event? If we're equipped with flow management, is there a high flow event or a low flow event? And right now, the only way we're able to tell this, if we're not utilizing this technology, is one, a leak could be happening for a long time and we don't know about it, and we finally see it and there's damage caused and there's a waste of water. Two, plant failure, right? Hey, there's a massive brown spot on the turf area, and what happened there? Well, something electronically failed, either the controller or the solenoid. So all those things have a price right now, and we're very reactive. And so now there's technology out there that allows us to be proactive, allow us to know real time what's going on, so we can make those fixes. And at the end of the day, you're conserving water, you're conserving plant health, and protecting your image. The other thing I want to talk about here is pressure regulated spray heads. You guys may have already know everything about these, but I just wanted to point them out that this is another small piece of technology, low hanging fruit, that provides a ton of return for what it costs to upgrade. And it's also required in California going forward. I think it's been that way for about a year. And so what it is it's on your spray heads. It's also available on rotors, but it's regulating the pressure at each head. So instead of an older design system where maybe the first head on the line has a lot of pressure and the last head on the line, you see it just like spitting out a little bit, and then you have to overwater overwater the zone to get, proper coverage. You're able to not do that anymore with pressure regulation. So it optimizes the pressure at each head for the nozzle that's on it, and then it provides better coverage, and then over time provides water savings, because it's just a part of the formula that the more pressure that's coming out, typically there's more water used, and then you're losing coverage, or you have coverage issues as well too. So I wanted to take just a small snapshot and show what that looks like. Let's say on average our spray heads are at 50 psi, and for a spray head we should regulate the pressure across all manufacturers, not just ours. Every manufacturer that manufactures a spray head or a spray nozzle, 30 psi is how it's designed to operate. And so just taking from 50 psi, which is a system average, without other forms of pressure regulation, it could be higher, and down to 30 psi. Well, this is gallons used in a 10 head zone over the course of a year. And so just imagine that's only 10 heads on one zone over the course of a year. So, I don't know how big, properties are represented on this call, but I'm assuming some are massive. So you take this number by, 1,000 in some cases. And, this is I think 27, mid 20% savings. And all we did here was we changed the heads from non-pressure regulating to pressure regulating, made no other adjustments. And this is what you get. So that's another thing as well too. I will throw a small caveat in there. If you're going to change out, whether you're accepting a proposal from your landscape provider or you're looking for one, make sure that when you do this, you're changing out a zone at a time. Don't just change out one head on a zone that doesn't do anything. You're going to have to change out all heads on that particular zone to PRS in order to get the benefit. So really quick, we talked about a couple things, really high level. To me, it's a call to action for all of us. We're all participants in this puzzle, in this effort to one, conserve water. There's a couple different reasons. You could debate it however you feel. Socially it's the right thing to do. It costs a lot of money. All those kind of things. We all have a participatory role, and I think making a conscious effort, a little bit of intentionality around it. Our industry will do better. Our plants will look better. Our budgets will look better. And then every single thing, and I often say this too, not just because I'm in irrigation. Even before I got into irrigation, I feel like the investment that you make into your irrigation system is one of the few, if not the only. An arborist would probably argue with me as well, but it would one of the very few investments that you can make that has a return in the landscape space. So with that, I'm open to questions. That is my contact information, since we all know what that looks like now. But I appreciate the time and look forward to any questions.
Maybe for Tommy, I had one, and for Jared. So are there any rebates still available for this type or these types of products for facility professionals?
Yeah,
obviously in California.
yes, they're going to go by the water districts, and also different municipalities, so different county, cities, stuff like that. They do run out, so a lot of times we will have these conversations 4, 5, 6 months out. A lot of planning in it, but absolutely, Gary, these are available, and we continue to see them pop up week, month out all the time.
Okay.
See, anybody else got anything here?
I have more questions. I usually do.
Awesome.
What about ROI on some of these technologies? You talked about the low-hanging fruit, but in general, when you say that, is low-hanging fruit a return on that investment like a year, 18 months? And then what are some of the long-term investments that might take 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, no, great question. I thought about putting it in here, so maybe I should have. But the weather-based controllers and the pressure regulating spray heads, I will say on the weather-based controllers, less than 2 years is a conservative look. With rebates, that can be pushed less than 6 months. The pressure regulating spray heads also less than a year. And then master valve and flow sensing, I've kind of left that alone for this call just because it can go down some rabbit holes. But the master valve and flow sensing, depending on, especially in a retrofit situation, depending on how complex the retrofit needs to be, it can be probably 3 to 5 years. If it's super complex, it'd be over 5.
Okay.
Let's see any more down here.
And I will
I've got
say
more.
the other thing, if I could make another plug for inspections and timely approval for repairs.
Yeah.
If we were better as an industry, and it's super hard to do, and we're always in a hurry, right? But if I sent you a proposal to fix a leak and I had the ROI for that on every single proposal, there would be no questions asked ever. The amount of time to fix a leak, it's unless it's a main line buried super deep. I mean, we're talking less than $1,000, most of the time less than $500. And the ROI on that is like less than 30 days. So.
I'm not sure if y'all saw Tom with Soka. He replied the ROI was 1.5 years for them. And I'm not sure, Tom, if you can go on. Are you using the Weathermatic, or are you just using a system like that? Well, another system. Okay. But reality is it's doing what you're saying, Jared, right? It's supplying the need for us managers.
Yeah, absolutely. I wear a certain jersey, but it's the concept. The concept is true across the board.
Right.
So this might be, I've got another one. So if Jared, Tommy, we've got a lot of pressure on our water system and, drought issues, et cetera, in California. And so many facility people have already made many investments, both in changing their landscape material and putting in drip irrigation or other types of things. So maybe someone did that 5 years ago, and what do they do now? What are they being asked to do now? Or what would you tell that person 5 years ago different from what you would tell someone today?
So I would say it's a continuation, right? Because no matter, I think they all, and there's different size of impact for all those things you mentioned. They're all good things. And probably changing out the landscape, that's a really long ROI, right? Because it's typically, pretty expensive. I mean, expensive is relative. It's pretty expensive, and then that return it takes quite a while. I would probably put it in the 10+ category, if not longer than that. These particular pieces, drip irrigation, it depends on why you were trying to fix it. These things I think are necessary no matter the crop. I mean, so if you're comparing year over year on the same landscape, this will provide the return, whether it's a drought tolerant landscape or whether it's 100% turf. And then 5 years ago, this technology existed. It's not brand new. The PRS is a little bit more new, but if this investment was made 5 years ago, and it has been executed. So whoever brought up, they got a year and a half, applaud there, because they executed, they used the technology. They didn't bypass it, right? It didn't become a paperweight. So that's awesome. And if they did that 5 years ago, they're going to still get the benefit moving forward. And it's not really, they're not going to save 20% every year, but they're going to save the cost if they didn't do anything, right? They're saving against status quo.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
they may already have some, like the check valves and different pieces already installed where they're going to save if they just upgraded their system. And the operating side, the mechanics in the field are going to be already probably in place. I know for us, we've got thousands of sprinklers and I don't even know how many controllers we've had out here have right now. And that was one of the big costs to us, was going in and putting all these check valves, pressure sensors and different things. That was kind of one of our inhibitors. But, Jared, I had to step out for a second for an HR issue I had to address, but I don't know if you covered one of the things that I was very interested in this system was that it has a sensors that actually monitors the weather, in a sense that if it's a wet, dewy day, it might not run the sensor, or it might not run the sprinklers, because it's checking the soil, and the soil says, I don't need the sprinklers running today, even though you've told me to. That's a function in this process, right?
Yeah, it can be. So I will say our particular equipment and hardware utilizes, we call it hyper local, but it's on-site weather stations to formulate the ET, or evapotranspiration. There are abilities to add moisture sensing equipment, to that controller. There are also manufacturers that their bet or their go-to-market strategy has been around soil sensing, and so the concepts or the end result is really close to the same. But yes, it's taken into consideration, hey, today is 10 degrees less than yesterday, or even soil sensing can get down to it's a really shady area, or the root zone is still full, we don't need to add more water. But all those things, the concepts are the same. Let's irrigate based on true real-time need versus set it, forget it, worst case scenario.
Yeah.
Looks like we got another question from Jimmy. So sorry to cover this already, Jared. Does the system have any way to sense leak in the system?
Yeah, so the short answer is yes. If the system is equipped with a flow sensor, and typically a flow sensor and a master valve. And so there needs to be a device in the field or in the irrigation system that detects flow, and then it's detecting flow when it should have flow, and it's also detecting if there is no flow and it should have flow. So every system will need a flow sensor installed in the field. And then again, if it's a retrofit situation, if you're not the subject matter expert, definitely raise your hand, get some help, because not all systems can be retrofit to provide the same level of flow sensing as the next system.
Hey, Jared, thank you for that. And just as a follow-up question, so you said you guys have is it a master flow for the system, or does each zone have a flow sensor? Because, you definitely don't want to turn off, I would assume, the entire system, and maybe just want to turn off a zone where there might be a leak.
Yeah, you got it. No, great thought there. And yeah, so typically the let's just keep it a simple system. So we have one controller, we have one point of connection or backflow, and then one master valve and one flow sensor. And so that would be a typical setup. And so then what's happening is the controller and the flow sensor are working together to know when should flow be happening. And so the controller is saying, hey, zone 1 is running. We've learned over time that zone 1 should operate at 35 gallons per minute. And as long as we're in the set threshold, maybe it's 25 to 45 gallons per minute. As long as we're within that threshold, everything is perfect and moving along. So as soon as we break that threshold, let's say we have a high flow event, we're operating at 50 gallons per minute. The controller says, hey, that's not good, and we'll actually shut down the master valve, which shuts down the flow to the whole system, and it'll move on to the next zone. There's a couple different settings, but to go along with your scenario, you're correct. I don't want to shut down the whole system just because zone 1 has a leak. I can shut down zone 1, I go on to zone 2, and if I register within my thresholds for the rest of the zones, I'm okay. You get the alert that there's a leak on a high flow event on zone 1, and you can go fix it. Now, if zone 1 had a high flow and zone 2 had a high flow, then there's logic built in the background that's probably not a lateral, it's probably a main, and then it would shut down the system, send you an alert saying, hey, zone 1 and zone 2 had a high flow, then we can go test it, and probably a mainline leak at that point.
Awesome. Thank you for that.
I got to figure out how to answer that one more concise, but thanks for putting up with the long answer.
I think that was, sorry, this is Jared. I think that was a good answer, Jared, and I believe, because I had talked pre-meeting, we've been looking at systems like this. I think one of the best benefits that we're getting off of something like this is when that flow switch shuts that one zone off, you're getting an email letting you know. So it's not like you're going to be watering for a week before you realize that area is not working. So you might miss one water cycle, but you're not going to miss weeks where things are going to die, because as soon as that one says an alarm, you're going to get an email or a notification saying, hey, valve 14 was shut off for flow issues, and then you can address it very next day or the day of, depending on if you're around when you're cycling through.
Yeah, it just goes back to another benefit of that cloud-based alert monitoring, right? You have to have that two-way communication with the controller so that you can get those alerts and respond, as quickly as you can.
Well, all right. Anybody else have any more questions for Jared or about this in general?
All right. Oh, he's back. Well, I want to thank, let me close, you can close, but let me just thank everybody who came. Thank Jared for your time and your presentation. And Tommy, I want to thank you for helping out with this and getting this program going today, and being our membership chair for IFMA. So all of you who will be coming to these next few events that we have lined up, this is the face of membership right here. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Jerry. It's been a lot of fun getting to know the internal team here, and I look forward to meeting everybody in person at the next few events. Really driving the force to get more facility managers and business partners together to learn, discern, and improve on our processes. Lastly, I just want to say thank you again to Jared. I've known Jared for some time. I knew he would kill it, and certainly did again today. So a big webinar round of applause for Jared. I wish the rest of you all a great day. Jared?
All right, that's all I had. Thank you guys for involving me, and Enjoy the rest of the week.
Thank you.
You guys have a great day.
Thank you.